The income and expenses of the British royal family are under close attention from their subjects. Firstly, finance is the main argument in the dispute between supporters of the monarchy and its opponents. And secondly, there's always some curiosity. So what does the royal family's income consist of? It consists of several sources. Each Windsor has their own personal funds they inherited. It can be a trust fund, like William's and Harry's, or castles, lands, art objects, and other valuable collections, like Elizabeth II's. And in order for the funds to multiply, they are invested. However, there is no data on what kind of income it brings. As representatives of the authorities, members of the royal family receive money from official funds. So Elizabeth II is annually allocated a so-called sovereign grant, a percentage of the profits of the crown property. Property refers to land, real estate, and other assets owned by the crown, that is, the state. These assets began to be collected as early as the 12th century, and each new monarch either replenished or reduced them. And in the 18th century, George III transferred the crown's possessions to the Parliament in exchange for covering the expenses of the monarch and his family. The rest of the funds had to go to state needs. This agreement is still valid, with only one change. If earlier the ruler was paid a fixed amount, then since 2012, a percentage. The initial rate was 15%, but in 2016 it was raised to 25%, provided that the entire surplus would be directed to the reconstruction of Buckingham Palace. Through a sovereign grant, the Queen received $105 million in 2021, and the money goes to the salaries of a large staff of maintenance personnel, repair work, official trips of Elizabeth and her family members, as well as utilities. If the sovereign grant paid turns out to be more than the amount of expenses, then the surplus is added to the reserve fund. The second source of income for the Queen is an estate called the Duchy of Lancaster, only it is completely under the control of the monarch. This fund is already much more modest, and it brings less income, about $25 to $30 million. Elizabeth can spend these funds at her own discretion. They partially cover the cost of events that are not paid for from a sovereign grant, but still have the status of official ones. In addition, the Queen allocates money from this fund to pay for all the needs of her close relatives. And Elizabeth also transfers funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. The ruling monarch voluntarily pays income tax on the income from the duchy. Prince Charles also has a duchy, and it brings in more than $26.5 million a year. The heir can spend these funds on the needs of his family, and they partially go to payments to his wife and children, but almost half goes to work trips and other activities related to official duties. In addition, the Prince of Wales donates significant amounts to charity and pays income tax. The royal court tries to optimize expenses year after year. For example, they reduce the number of flights and rent out a royal helicopter. But despite this, only the family members' travel is calculated in six figures. In 2019, $6.4 million was spent on official trips, and in 2020, $3.8 million. In total, Elizabeth II and her family members spend about $360 million a year to maintain the monarch's lifestyle. At the same time, the most significant item of expenditure is the cost of security. Ensuring the security of the Windsors costs about $120 million annually. Do you think such expenses are justified? If you like the video, leave a like and also subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss anything interesting.